At our Thanksgiving table, my uncle announced, "Let's all give thanks for those who actually contribute to this family." My hand shook. My wife whispered, "Say it." I stood and said, "Then you won't mind paying back the $84,000 I've covered since 2017. I swear the air in my mom's dining room actually shifted when my Uncle Mark cleared his throat and tapped his damn wine glass like he was the king of Thanksgiving. The table went quiet. Kids froze. Even the dog tucked itself under a chair like it sensed drama coming. Then he said it. "Let's all give thanks for those who actually contribute to this family." He dragged out the word, actually like it was aimed straight at me. And honestly, it was. Everyone knew it. I felt my face get hot, but not from embarrassment, from anger I'd been swallowing for years. My hand was shaking so hard my fork rattled on the plate. My wife, Hannah, leaned in and whispered, "Say it." She didn't even look at me. She kept her eyes on Mark, like she was daring me to finally stop letting him rewrite the family narrative. My mom froze in that polite smile panic mode she always does when Mark starts running his mouth. My cousins looked anywhere but at me. My dad shifted uncomfortably, like he wanted to intervene, but wouldn't. Because he never does. Mark raised his glass like he expected applause. "Some of us," he added, "pull more than our weight. Financially, especially." He smiled at me with that smug, patronizing look he's perfected since I was 12. Something in me snapped. I stood up so fast my chair skidded back and tapped the wall. Every head whipped toward me. Hannah slid her hand onto my back, steady, grounding. "Then you won't mind," I said, "paying back the $84,000 I've covered since 2017. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The words were loud enough on their own. Mark blinked. Actually blinked like the human version of a buffering wheel. My mom whispered, "What?" My dad's jaw dropped. My cousin Emily whispered, "Holy shit," under her breath. I kept going before anyone could interrupt. "All those loans you said you'd pay back as soon as you got back on your feet. All those emergencies. All those months I covered your share of mom's mortgage when you blew your money on whatever the hell you blow it on. It adds up to $84,000. You could have heard a cranberry drop. Mark recovered fast, faster than I expected. "That's ridiculous," he snapped. "You're exaggerating." My wife reached in her purse. "No," she said calmly, "he's not." She pulled out a manila envelope, one I didn't even know she brought, and set on the table with a soft thud. Inside, I knew, were the spreadsheets, the receipts, the screenshots of transfers and texts. The actual numbers that kept me awake more nights than I'd ever admit. Mark stared at it like it was a bomb. "You're really doing this?" he asked. "At Thanksgiving." I looked him dead in the eyes. "You started it." "And I swear," he smirked, just the tiniest curl of his lips, like he knew something I didn't. Like this was all part of some bigger game he had already planned. Before I could ask what the hell that look meant, my mom stood up, red-faced and shaking. "Everyone stop," she said. "Just stop. We're not having this discussion today." But it was too late. The room was already cracked open, and Mark looked way too calm, way too confident, for a man who'd just been exposed in front of the entire family. Because what I didn't know, what none of us knew then, was that Mark had been hiding something far worse than unpaid loans. Something that would blow the whole family apart. And I was about to find out. Before everything blew up at that Thanksgiving table in my parents' place in Racine, Wisconsin, the story had already been simmering for years. I just kept pretending it wasn't happening. Mark wasn't always the villain of my life. When I was a kid, he was the cool uncle. He'd show up with baseball cards, or take me to Dairy Queen when my parents were working late. He had this charisma that made everyone lean in when he talked. Even now, he walks into a room like he owns it. The problem is, somewhere along the line, he started believing his own hype. He worked construction most of his life, but he was terrible with money. Not just, oops, I forgot to save, terrible. I mean pathological. Gambling, impulsive purchases, weird investments based on conspiracy-level advice from guys he met in bars. My grandma used to say he had a hole in his pocket. What she didn't say, but everyone knew, was that he expected other people to patch that hole for him. When I graduated from UW, Milwaukee in 2014 and got a decent job in tech, Mark started talking to me differently, complimenting me more, calling me kiddo again, even though I was 23. I didn't realize it then, but he was grooming me reshaping the dynamic so he could lean on me financially without making it seem like begging. The first loan he asked for was in 2017. His truck broke down. He needed $2,300 to repair it so he could keep his job. I didn't think twice. He hugged me, told me I was saving his life, and promised he'd pay it back within 2 months. He didn't. Then it was $1,500 for an emergency dental surgery. Then $4,800 for overdue rent. Then $6,000 because his tools were stolen and he couldn't work without replacing them. Every time there's a story. Every time I felt guilty saying no. Every time he swore it was the last time. It never was. My wife, Hannah, warned me early on. Your uncle is using you, she said. He doesn't even try to fix his situation. He just waits for you to bail him out. I pushed back. I told her she didn't understand the family dynamic. I told her Mark had helped me when I was young. I told her I didn't want to cause drama. But the truth was uglier. I was scared to confront him. Mark has this way of making you feel like you're selfish or cold if you don't help him. And my parents, especially my mom, always defended him. He's had a harder life, she'd say. We need to support each other. Except we always met me. In 2020, things escalated. Mark lost his job again, unfairly fired, he claimed, and moved back in with my parents. They were struggling with mortgage payments, and without even discussing it with me, my mom called crying because they were falling behind. She asked if I could cover just a couple months. Those couple months turned into almost a year. By 2021, I realized the truth. I wasn't helping my family. I was enabling a grown man who refused to take responsibility for anything, and he wasn't grateful. He acted entitled to it, but I kept paying, quietly, because I didn't want to be the reason the family imploded. What I didn't know was that Mark was telling a very different story behind my back, one that painted him as the hero and me as the selfish, ungrateful one, a story that would eventually come back to hit me like a truck, a story that made his smirk at Thanksgiving suddenly make perfect, horrifying sense. By the time we hit fall of 2023, there was a split running through my family that no one talked about, but everyone felt, and somehow, without realizing it, I had become the center of it. It started small, weird comments from cousins, awkward pauses when I walked into a room, group texts happening without me. At first, I shrugged it off. Families drift. People get busy. But then my cousin Jenna posted some vague nonsense on Facebook about people who act generous but only help when they want control. It got liked by half the family, including Mark. I should have known then. Instead, I tried to keep things normal. I visited my parents on weekends, helped my dad fix random stuff around the house, and pretended it didn't bother me that every time Mark walked through the door, he acted like I wasn't even there. He didn't thank me for helping pay the mortgage. He didn't even acknowledge it. He just strutted around like the house existed because he allowed it to. He'd brag at family dinners about supporting mom and dad, and everyone nodded along while I chewed the inside of my cheek. Hannah would squeeze my hand under the table, and I'd just shake my head. I kept telling myself it wasn't worth the fight. But the escalation hit a whole new level when my parents started asking me questions that didn't make sense. Did you really tell Mark he should have declared bankruptcy sooner? Are you sure you didn't say you'd stop helping unless he proved himself? Why would you threaten to pull support? Threaten? Prove himself? What the hell? I told them I never said anything like that, and they believed me, kind of, but there was a new doubt in their voices. Like a seed had been planted, and they couldn't shake it. It got worse when my dad pulled me aside after a Sunday dinner and said, "Son, if you're feeling resentful about helping, just say so. Don't criticize your uncle behind his back." I actually laughed in his face. I couldn't help it. I had spent years breaking myself financially to keep the family afloat. Criticize him? I was terrified to even question him. That night, Hannah and I talked about it for hours. She insisted something else was going on. "He's manipulating your parents," she said. "I guarantee it. And if he's lying to them, he's lying to others too." I didn't want to believe it, but it made sense. And once the idea settled in my mind, it didn't go away. Then came the tipping point. Mom called one evening, upset, tearing up, because Mark told her I was making a big deal about money and holding it over his head. He claimed I threatened to stop paying unless he agreed to boundaries. which made my mother panic because she thought that meant she'd lose the house. I hadn't said any of that. That was the first time I felt something dark slide into place. Like the floor under all of us was shifting, not because of money, but because of Mark's narrative. And like clockwork, he started giving these speeches at dinners, little jabs about family responsibility. Stuff like, some people contribute quietly, others just want applause. We do what we can, even if some of us don't appreciate it. He said those things while looking right at me, and people believed him, because Mark was loud, emotional, dramatic, and I was the quiet one who didn't want to get involved. He rewrote the entire story in real time, and I let him, for too long. But that Thanksgiving table, his smirk, his confidence, that stupid toast, made everything snap into focus. Because by then, he had already set something in motion. I was about to find out exactly how deep the damage went. When Mark smirked at me across the Thanksgiving table, right after I dropped the $84,000 bomb, something in his eyes told me he'd been waiting for this moment. Not dreading it. Waiting. And that was the part that messed with me. Because guilt should have been a natural reaction, or shock, or embarrassment. But he looked pleased, like my confrontation was the last puzzle piece sliding into place. I didn't understand it until 3 days later. It was the Sunday after Thanksgiving when my mom called, her voice thin and shaky. "Can you come over?" she asked. "It's about the house." The house. My stomach tightened. I drove over with Hannah, not knowing what kind of damage Mark had done, but expecting it to be some emotional fallout, maybe some ugly fight he started. But when we arrived in my parents' living room in Racine, my mom was sitting on the couch holding a stack of papers, her hands trembling. My dad stood behind her, pale and furious in a way I'd only seen once before at my grandfather's funeral. Mom passed the papers to me without looking up. It was a mortgage statement. Correction, it was a notice of delinquency. I frowned. This doesn't make sense. I've been paying. My dad cut me off. That's the problem. Hannah leaned over my shoulder, scanning the page. Her hand flew to her mouth. The numbers didn't add up. Literally. For the last 11 months, I've been sending $1,400 each month directly to my mom's account to help cover the mortgage. Except according to the bank statement, only about a third of those deposits had ever actually reached the mortgage. The rest? Gone. Drained. Withdrawn in cash or transferred to an unnamed checking account. I flipped through the pages, and every month told the same story. I looked at my mom. Did the bank make a mistake? She shook her head, eyes filling with tears. No. Mark told us. My heart dropped. Mark told you what? My dad stepped in, jaw tight. He told us you stopped paying months ago, that you were pulling back because you were tired of helping. He said he'd cover the shortfall. I swear I went cold. My mom let out a broken laugh. And we believed him. We actually believed him. Because when the mortgage fell behind, he said he was doing everything he could to keep us afloat. He even said you yelled at him for asking you to help again. I sat down hard. Mark had been stealing the mortgage money. Not borrowing. Not redirecting. Stealing it. He'd been taking the payments I sent to my mom's account, transferring most of it out, and then pretending I'd stopped helping altogether, so that he could swoop in as the hero when the mortgage became overdue. He was building a narrative where I was the selfish one, and he was the dependable son saving the house. And my parents bought it. Every bit of it. My dad ran a hand over his face. We confronted him about why the payments weren't going through last week. That's when he admitted he'd used the money for multiple emergencies. But then he blamed it on you. Said you told him to do what you needed to do because you were done carrying everyone. I never said anything like that, I whispered. We know, my mom said. Now we do. We checked everything. We went through the bank transfers. All the transactions matched the amounts he told us. It's all traced to an account in Mark's name. That smirk at Thanksgiving suddenly made horrific sense. He wasn't shocked I confronted him. He was relieved, because he knew he'd already built a story strong enough to make me look like the bad guy, and himself the victim. He wanted the explosion. He engineered it, and the betrayal cut so deep I felt physically sick. But that wasn't even the worst part. Not by a long shot, because the account he funneled the money into, the one with my parents' mortgage payments, it wasn't empty. It had way more money in it than just what he stole from us. And when I saw who else had been depositing into that account, My entire world tilted. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that bank statement, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It wasn't just my money sitting in that account. It was deposits from other family members. Regular ones. Different amounts. Different dates. And not small either. My cousin Jenna, $300 here, $250 there. My Aunt Linda, $500 every few months. Even my own parents had been depositing extra money into it. And I knew none of them were wealthy enough to be throwing money at Mark out of generosity. He had built a whole second income stream by telling each person a different crisis story. Just enough variation to keep people from comparing notes. The only consistency was that he told all of them not to burden anyone else with it. Which meant me. He didn't just steal from me. He siloed all of us. He manipulated every person in the family using different lies. Lies tailored to their weaknesses. And when I looked at the total balance across the last 18 months, my mouth went dry. Mark hadn't taken a few thousand like he'd claimed. He had siphoned over $46,000 from various relatives, on top of the mortgage money. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not rage. Not grief. Something sharper. Something cleaner. Clarity. If this had been just about the money, I might have walked away and cut contact. But this wasn't financial desperation. This was a full-blown pattern of manipulation, theft, and self-serving narratives designed to isolate me from my family and keep everyone orbiting around him. And Thanksgiving showed me exactly how bold he'd gotten. He wanted the fight. He wanted the explosion. He wanted to position himself as the martyr holding the family together while I attacked him. Well, he got his explosion. Fine. But I was going to make damn sure he never recovered from it. Hannah and I spent that whole night at our kitchen table with laptops, highlighters, bank statements, and a level of fury that made everything feel electric. We built a timeline. Every loan, every deposit, every transfer, every lie. We color-coded it. We linked text messages. We pulled screenshots. We dug up old emails. Every inconsistency went into a folder. We were creating a picture Mark couldn't talk his way out of. Then we started calling family members, privately, one by one, starting with my cousin Emily, the one person who had looked at me with sympathy at Thanksgiving. When I told her what we found, she wasn't surprised. He told me you tried to stop him from helping your parents, she said. He said you were bitter, he had more financial freedom than you. I actually laughed. He told you he had financial freedom? Yeah, she said. He made it sound like he was managing all the family stuff by himself. Once we started comparing stories, everything cracked open. He had told Aunt Linda that my parents were in danger of losing the house, and that I refused to help because I was buying a luxury SUV. For the record, I drive a 2014 Honda Civic. He told my cousin Jenna that I'd cut him off financially and that he'd been working overtime to pick up the slack. He told my parents that I wanted distance from the family and was burned out from being asked for money. Piece by piece, his entire web came into focus. And the best part? Every single lie contradicted another lie. Hannah sat back, eyes exhausted but fierce. You know what this is, right? She said. This is fraud. Straight up. You could take this to the police. I nodded slowly. Yeah, but not yet. Because criminal charges would blow things up too fast. Mark would panic. He'd spin another story. He'd get defensive and dramatic and turn himself into the victim. No, I wanted him calm, comfortable, totally unaware he was already standing on a trapdoor. I wanted him to feel safe right up until the moment everything dropped out from under him. And with every new piece of evidence, the plan became clearer. But right as we were locking everything into place, right as we thought we finally had the full picture, something surfaced that neither of us expected. Something that didn't fit. Something that made my stomach twist. A second twist. A worse twist. And suddenly, Mark wasn't the only one implicated. I thought the worst part would be discovering how much money Mark had taken, or how he'd lied about me to everyone in the family, or even how he'd gotten away with it for so long. I was wrong. The real nightmare came when we dug deeper into the bank records, the ones my mom printed straight from the bank portal, not the filtered statements Mark had shown them before. There were deposits we recognized from Jenna, Aunt Linda, my parents, and others. But then there were deposits we didn't recognize. Bigger ones, regular ones, Same two names over and over. At first, I assumed they were friends of Mark's. Maybe co-workers. Maybe people he'd scammed the way he scammed us. But then Hannah zoomed in on the sender names and froze. Babe, those aren't strangers. I leaned over the laptop and immediately felt my stomach drop. They were my sister's kids. My own nieces. Technically, they were deposits coming from accounts created in their names. Two separate minor accounts. Both opened the same year. And the deposits were made from a third parent account tied to my sister, Allison. My chest tightened so fast, I had to put my hands on the table to steady myself. What the hell? I whispered. Why would Allison be transferring money to Mark? And why through the kids' accounts? Hannah didn't answer. She was scrolling faster, clicking through each transaction. The pattern was unmistakable. Twice-a-month deposits. Always the same range, $200 to $350. Not a single withdrawal from the kids' accounts except the transfers straight into Mark's. It wasn't just suspicious. It was intentional. It was systematic. And it made no sense. My sister loved her kids fiercely. She worked 2 jobs. She and her husband rented a cramped place in Kenosha and struggled to keep up with bills. She was not someone who could afford to give money away, especially not to Mark. My heart punched my ribs from the inside. What did he tell her? I murmured. What story did he feed her? Hannah kept scrolling, her face tight. There's something else. She clicked into one of the parent accounts, the one in my sister's name. There were notes attached to some of the transfers. Not many. 3 of them. But enough. Each one said the same thing. For Mom. For our mother. My mom. That's when I realized what happened. Mark hadn't just manipulated my parents and cousins. He had gone to my sister, the one person in the family who trusted him without question, and told her our mother needed help. He told her I wasn't helping. He told her he was handling it quietly, so I wouldn't feel pressured. And she had drained her kids' savings accounts because she believed our mother was in trouble. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. Hannah reached for my hand, but I pulled away, not from her, but from the feeling that I might actually scream. He used the kids, I said. He used my nieces. Hannah looked at me with something between rage and heartbreak. This isn't just greed. This is calculated. He knows exactly which buttons to push with every person. I felt a new kind of fury building, the kind that goes bone deep, the kind that isn't loud, the kind that doesn't explode, the kind that kills the switch inside you that used to hold you back. But the twist wasn't even finished, because when I called Allison, shaking, furious, barely able to get the words out, she broke down sobbing. Not because she'd been giving Mark money, not because he lied to her, but because she said, I didn't want to tell you. He made me promise not to. He said you were the reason Mom was struggling. I felt something in me collapse. Then she added one more sentence. The sentence that changed the entire landscape of everything we were planning. He also said Mom asked him to talk to me because she didn't want to come to you directly anymore. I just sat there, breath gone. Because if that was true, then this wasn't just Mark's scheme. Someone else was feeding him information. Someone inside the house. Someone I trusted. I went to my parents' house the next evening with my chest tight and my mind spinning. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the loud, explosive way I'd been before. This felt different. Heavier. Like something poisonous was settling under my ribs. My mom answered the door with red eyes. My dad hovered behind her, arms crossed, jaw tight. They already knew something more had surfaced. Hannah stood beside me, silent but steady. We sat in the living room. No TV, no distractions. Just 4 people and a truth that felt too big for the room. I started slow. I told them about the account and my niece's names. About the deposits. About how Allison had believed they were in trouble and had been secretly draining her kids' savings. My mom covered her mouth, whispering, "Oh my God," over and over. My dad turned red, not the usual frustrated red. This was something darker. Then I asked the question I'd been dreading. Did you ever tell Mark not to come to me for help? My mom shook her head instantly. Never. Why would I? You've done more for us than. I cut her off gently. Then why did he tell Allison that you didn't want to ask me anymore? She looked at me, eyes confused, searching. Then she leaned back like someone had punched her through the chest. My father looked away, and I knew before either of them said a word. My dad exhaled. Son, your mom didn't say that. I did. It didn't hit me like a shock. It hit like clarity, sudden, clean, devastating. He kept talking. He said that about a year and a half ago, he'd pulled Mark aside during one of his stays at the house. He told him that the financial help I was giving, the mortgage payments, the random bills, the emergencies was too much pressure on me, that I shouldn't have to carry the whole family. He didn't mean it in a bad way. He wasn't trying to hurt me. He thought he was protecting me. But he also admitted something else, something that froze the room. I told him not to bring money problems to you anymore, he said quietly. I told him if things got bad again, you should come to me first. I thought it would take the burden off you. I stared at him. And you said this alone? No one else around? He nodded. No follow-up? No check-in? Nothing. Another nod. That's when everything locked into place, piece by horrifying piece. Mark twisted those exact words into something sick. My father said, don't bring money problems to him anymore. Mark turned it into, they don't want you involved. And then into, he refuses to help. And then into, he's resentful. And finally into, your mom is struggling and your brother won't help, so I'm saving the family. He used my dad's attempt at protecting me as the weapon that stabbed me in the back. But the deeper truth, the part that chilled me, was why he did it. Because when we confronted Mark later, after everything exploded, he said it plainly. He didn't apologize. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look embarrassed. He looked proud. He said, you were the golden boy. Always. College degree. Good job. Stable marriage. Mom bragged about you nonstop. I was sick of it. He said, I fixed the narrative. He said, I made things balanced again. That was his reason. Not necessity. Not desperation. Not some tragic sob story. Resentment. Envy. A need to tear me down because he couldn't stand how the family saw me compared to him. He wanted to hurt me. He wanted to replace me. He wanted to be the hero in every room I walked into. And he didn't care who he hurt, my sister, my nieces, my parents, as long as he rewrote reality to put himself at the center. No remorse, no hesitation, no humanity. Just cold, calculated spite. That was the moment I stopped seeing him as family and started seeing him as a target. Once the real reason came out, not desperation, not fear, but straight up envy and spite, something inside me snapped in a way I can't take back. I wasn't shaking anymore. I wasn't confused. I wasn't even angry. I was focused. Hannah and I had already built the framework of the plan, but after hearing exactly why he did it, I sharpened every piece of it until it cut clean. This wasn't going to be loud revenge. This wasn't going to be a screaming match or a messy family blow-up. This was going to be controlled demolition, slow, deliberate, and absolute. And I had everything I needed. I invited every family member who had been paying him, including my sister, both cousins, my aunt, and of course my parents, to my house the following Saturday. I told them it was about clearing the air. I didn't tell Mark. We printed out a full booklet of the timeline. Dates, amounts, screenshots, receipts. Every lie color-coded by who he told it to. Every contradiction laid out like a crime scene reconstruction. The look on their faces, especially my sister's, when the full picture hit, was something I will never forget. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just grief. Raw, furious grief. Because everyone in that room had been used. Even the kids. When everyone finally understood the scale of what he'd done, I asked a question that set the entire plan in motion. Do you want to confront him together? Or do you want to take him down quietly? Everyone chose quietly. Everyone wanted consequences, not drama. Everyone wanted him out of our lives. So we built the final trap. Hannah compiled every instance of financial deception. The stolen mortgage payments, the fraudulent use of minors' accounts, the false statements he made that led people to give him money, the pattern of misrepresentation, the dollar amounts traced directly to his personal account. We brought it all to a lawyer in downtown Racine. He reviewed it for 20 minutes, then said the words I had been waiting for. I can build a case. And it's strong. This wasn't some petty family squabble. This was financial exploitation, fraud, elder financial abuse, and misuse of minors' accounts. In Wisconsin, that combination isn't a slap on the wrist. It's life-changing. For him, we prepared the civil suit. We prepared the criminal complaint. We prepared the restitution demand, and then we hit the final switch. We mailed him everything at once. The lawsuit packet, the criminal complaint, the full dossier of every lie and every transaction, copies of statements from every relative he manipulated, all delivered by certified mail. He called me an hour after he received it, not yelling, not apologizing, just breathing hard, like he finally understood the gravity of what he'd done. "You're going too far," he said. "No," I told him calmly. "I'm going exactly as far as you pushed me." He tried spinning more lies, many versions, panic versions, but I shut that down instantly. "You don't get to talk to me anymore. All communication goes through the attorney." Then I hung up, and that was the last time I spoke to him. Word got out fast. Not from me, from the paperwork. Mark packed his stuff and moved out of my parents' house within 48 hours. My dad told him not to come back. My mom stopped defending him entirely. My sister blocked his number. My aunt demanded full repayment. My cousins cut contact. Every room he used to control suddenly had its door slammed in his face. The civil suit is still moving. The criminal complaint is active. And the amount he owes, including what he stole from my nieces, is more than he will ever realistically be able to pay back. That's not my problem anymore. A month later, I sat at the same Thanksgiving table. This time quiet, warm, comfortable in a way it hadn't been for years. My family actually talked to each other. There are no speeches, no theatrics, no tension vibrating under the surface. Halfway through dinner, my mom reached over, squeezed my hand, and said, "Thank you for giving us the truth back." It wasn't an apology. It was something better. It was acknowledgement. When dessert came around, Hannah leaned close and asked, "Feel any better?" I thought about it for a moment. "Yeah," I said, "because for once, he's the one paying." She smirked. "Fitting." And I nodded, because after everything he took, the money, the trust, the narrative, there was one thing he never expected. The one thing he couldn't twist or manipulate. The truth. And the truth destroyed him.